Pleased to be joined today by several individuals who will speak and others, community leaders, in a real drive to make sure that we are all answering the 2010 census, that many of us have worked incredibly hard to try to ensure that we have the best accurate count because of what it means to our communities, to our representation, and to our country. And you'll hear from several of our speakers in a moment. Everyone in New Jersey, everyone in America who cares about their community, everyone who cares about our schools, about the money school districts have received based on population formulas, as it relates to transportation, as it relates to health care, as it relates to literally billions of dollars that are decided in part by the information that is derived from the United States Census that takes place once every 10 years. And the new Census Director, Dr. Robert Groves, needs all of our support and cooperation. He needs to count on every New Jerseyan and every American to fill out the forms they receive in the mail. He needs the cooperation of everyone in the community if we are to be accurately and fairly counted and apportion congressional seats and precious federal resources, roughly $400 billion that is determined in part by the census numbers. Now, according to a recent Brookings Institute study, New Jersey is among the top 10 states in the nation receiving federal funds. Based on census numbers, we ranked 9th in the nation out of 50 states in federal funds with $14.4 billion in fiscal 2008. Now, we want to keep it that way, and we actually want to enhance that, and that means an accurate count of every New Jerseyan to reflect our real numbers in every formula for federal funding and for projects that are determined by the federal government as well as services. Being counted means making sure we continue to get what we are entitled to based on our population. And let me just stop there for a moment. I sit on the committee, on the Finance Committee of the United States Senate. That is the committee for which every formula, every tax provision, every health care provision, every basic legislation that needs any source of funding is determined on. And in those formulas, one of the critical elements of every formula, regardless of what the issue is population. So when we do not get counted, we lose money. We lose money for our kids and their schools. We lose money for our parents and our grandparents and their health care. We lose money for our communities like Elizabeth to help the mayor, help the local property taxpayers by getting resources he needs. We lose money in housing. We lose money in development. We lose money in transportation. We lose when we are not counted. And the private sector makes literally even more. I mentioned $400 billion by the federal government. The private sector uses the census numbers that makes billions of dollars more in decisions as to where will they invest. Where will they go and create one of their stores? Where will they go and invest in a factory, a distribution center? Where will they go market their product or service? They are going to look at those census numbers that not just talk about how many people there are, but incomes and a whole host of other demographic factors, how many women there are, how many children in this age group. You know, if you think about it, Toys R Us is going to go place a store in a location in which there is the greatest number of children and income that ultimately would be derived from the ability for them to sell what they sell at Toys R Us. And that's just one example of literally thousands. So the private sector makes billions of dollars in decisions as to where they are going to invest money by virtue of those numbers in the census. And then there's another critical element. It's about representation. Members of the United States House of Representatives, and Congressman Sears is here with us, members of the New Jersey legislature, many city councils, freeholder positions are all determined to a large degree by population. So if New Jersey is going to keep its 13 congressional members of the House of Representatives, we have to have the best count. If we lose a member because we do not have a good count, we have one less voice in Washington, one less vote in Washington, one less member who has a series of critical committee assignments that make a difference in our lives in terms of the legislation they move, whether they're sitting on the Transportation Committee or the Housing Committee or the Education Committee or on the Tax Writing Committee as I do. We lose. So we need to know those numbers because they will also determine what those congressional districts look like. They will determine what Assembly and Senate districts here for the state look like. Many times, depending on the community, they will determine what the council seat, if they're running by wards, or freeholder seats by districts. We need to have a count for representation as well. This is about us and our families and our community and our future for a decade. This happens only once every 10 years. The fact is, for every New Jerseyan who is not counted in the census, we will lose per individual between 12 and 14,000 per person over the next 10 years. Once you don't get counted and the census closes, you can't say, hey, I was here. It's too late. So we will lose about $14,000 a person times 10 years, $140,000 for each person who does not get counted. Now, the census is confidential. Some people say, well, why? I don't like giving that information. First of all, overwhelmingly, it's 10 questions. It takes 10 minutes to make a difference in your lives, in the lives of your community, in the lives of our state, and for that fact, in our country. 10 minutes, 10 questions. Absolutely confidential. What does that mean? The census cannot give your information to anyone else. It cannot give this information to the President of the United States. It cannot give your information to the Internal Revenue Service. It cannot give your information to Immigration or Customs or anyone else. To do so is not only a violation of law, but punishable by a penalty and ultimately jail time. The census is confidential. And that is made that way so that we can ensure that people know that when they give their information, it will be held confidentially and no one will know your information. Everyone should understand that the census is not designed to target anyone. It's designed so government can plan for future needs. How many children our schools need to be able to attend, how much funding our school districts are entitled to, how much highway funding we will receive, how many people will need medical care, how many children and seniors live in our community, how much federal assistance New Jersey is entitled based on a true population. What does our population look like? How diverse is it? And what unique set of circumstances and issues might arise from the essence of that diversity? It's not just a count of numbers, it's a count that talks about incomes, and it talks about education, and it talks about housing. And so it gives the nation a picture as to who we are, where we've been, where we are now, and where we are going.